Hello, guys. Jerry Learns Business. Very special guest, acting coach Alan Gordon. Welcome, Alan.
Hi, Jerry. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And for those of you who follow me besides this channel, you know I've talked to Alan before on other channels. So, Alan, you specialize in teaching the Meisner Method, right?
Yeah, I teach the Meisner technique. I specialize in that. And then, of course, I teach how to apply it to scene study, script breakdown, interpretation, on-camera technique, and I use it in my private sessions.
And Alan, tell me about your acting training. Did you start out in film school and acting conservatory? What was your kind of training before you became a coach?
Well, when I was in college, you know, as a kid and in high school, I was always getting in trouble for making my fellow students laugh, particularly during class. And so I got a reputation of being funny, and I was outgoing, I was extroverted, but I also had stage fright. You know, like if somebody offered me a part in something, I was like, inwardly, you know, and I needed to overcome that. And when I was in college, I was going through the same pattern, you know, and a good friend of mine had come over to me and he'd said, hey, you know, my buddy Rich, he's been writing and directing vignettes and he's been working improv, and I recommended you. And I guess he must have seen something in my eyes, you know. And he looked at me, he's a very honest guy, and he goes, Alan, come on, you know, why are you wasting what talents you have? You got to get out there and you have to start, at the very least, exploring it. So right then and there, I said, you know what, I have to push through my fear. And I gave this guy, Rich, a phone call. And he was doing all of this over at Brooklyn College. He was majoring in communications, television. And I started to write, and I started to perform. And that led to an underground television production called Video Madness. And I was meeting, you know, a lot of actors and comedians and so on and so forth. And they were encouraging me to get into it. And still, after the production was over, I kind of lost my mojo and I started doing other things, you know. And then when I met my wife, who's incredibly supportive, one day we were talking and she said to me, you know, you have to do something for yourself. You know, go and do something, pursue something that you have a passion for, like acting. And right then and there, I decided, let me start doing some formal training. So that's what I did. I started formally training, and then I got into the Meisner technique, which was the one that resonated most for me. And I began to audition and do some indie films and, you know, plays, off-Broadway plays, and then a few things on television. I got into SAG, I got into Equity, and I got a few roles here and there. Interestingly enough, I studied with a brilliant teacher by the name of Tim Phillips. And when I was in Tim's class and I was auditioning and my focus was on acting, I said, boy, this guy, he loves to teach. He seems to get so much pleasure out of teaching. And I really loved that process too, because he was the one that came up. He's actually written a book on auditioning, and I highly recommend it. And he came up with what he called the Sherlock Holmes method of breaking down a script.
Wow.
Well, I was fascinated by it. And the more I watched him, the more I wanted to teach. I said, boy, you know what? I want to try this teaching thing because I love communicating about acting and talking about the human condition and all that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, I picked up a couple of students here and there, and I was still auditioning at the time. But quite frankly, I felt that for me, teaching was my calling. That was the thing I felt I was meant to do. And I opened my studio in 1988, started teaching the Meisner technique and scene study, breakdown, interpretation, as I said, on camera, private coaching, monologues, the whole bit. I've been doing it ever since, and I have not lost my passion for it. I feel just as strongly about it today, maybe even more so. And I've been learning along the way. You know, you never stop learning.
Yeah. Two things I'm learning from you. One is I think your wife deserves a big shout out. The fact that she really supported you in this
Very
journey.
much.
You
Very
know,
much.
that wife of Mrs. Alan Gordon deserves a big shout out. And
Thank
then
you.
the second thing I think you really learned from your journey is that you were adapting as you figured out more within the creative process what you liked. You said, okay, well, I like teaching more than I like doing the acting. Not to say I don't like acting, but I like teaching even more. So let's just do that. We have like 100, 120 years on this earth. So let's just devote those 120 years to, what we really want to do. So I think those are two great things.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's the old expression. It's funny. There was this expression, actually, I always thought this expression must come from somebody like Oscar Wilde or Mark Twain. But I found out it was actually something, it was a quote from a Reader's Digest article where this guy, and I don't even know his name, I wish I could give him credit, said, life is what happens when you're making other plans.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So one of the things I've learned also through the Meisner technique, which I pass on to my students, is that things change because they have to, not because we want them to.
Mm.
So as we embark on our journeys and we come to that fork in the road, right, we decide, okay, I'm going this way as opposed to that way. I never had any regret about not pursuing acting anymore because the rewards of teaching are so great. I mean, the impact you can make on people's lives, not just with the craft of acting, but hopefully through my experience and whatever wisdom I've gained over the years, I can pass it along to them.
Yeah.
So they can not only be better actors, but hopefully more fulfilled people that whatever they decide, whether they decide to be actors or they want to go on to be writers or directors or a scenic designer or something even removed from acting, whatever it is, if you can make an impact on somebody's life, it's very enriching. It really is.
Yeah. So let me go back to the beginning of that journey. When you said you picked up a few students initially, how did that happen? Was it very natural, or how did you go find those first few students?
Well, I found sometimes when I was like in a play or something and we'd be talking about acting, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody would say to me, for example, gee, you have a very interesting approach to the craft and the technique. And, I'm not working with anybody now. I'm wondering if you'll work with me on a monologue. I said, oh, I'd love to. I'd love to do that. So we would set up a private session. Mm-hmm. And I would charge, a nominal fee at the beginning. And I began to get some referrals from these, if you will, happenstance meetings, mm-hmm. where somebody would say, oh, hi, Alan. Lloyd worked with me and he told me about you. I was wondering if you're taking on new students so you could spare a little time for me. I said, sure, I'd love to do that. Little by little. Sometimes I had classes because this business is very, how can I say, unpredictable.
Yeah, fickle. I was going to use the word fickle. Unpredictable.
I like that. I like that. I like your word better, fickle. Yeah, so sometimes, I would have 2, 3, 4 students. In fact, I had a core group of students that I started working with early on. One of them, Christian Cordula, is out in California, in your neck of the woods probably, and he's been working a lot. He's worked for Tyler Perry and so on and so forth in a variety of projects. And those, it was Christian and Ivan and Natalie and maybe even Trendon Gardner. It's been a while now, and I developed a really, really wonderful group of people. And I always stress the importance of learning, but also having fun while you learn. And one thing led to another, and then I would get more referrals.
Wow.
This crazy time now we're a little topsy-turvy right now, as you and I were just talking about before. Mm-hmm. And so since the studios haven't officially opened, I'm teaching online classes. But getting back to your initial question, I don't want to digress too much. One thing led to another, and I started building up classes, and I found myself teaching 1 class, and then 2 classes, and then 3 classes, and I built on it. And before I knew it, I was, guess what you call, swept up in the momentum of it all. You know, it's like this big wave. I just let it carry me out to sea, and I said, okay, let's see where it takes me. But always with my focus also on improving myself. Never standing pat, and reading constantly of bios and things of that nature, and learning about other actors' processes. And what did they learn, and who influenced their work, and what teachers did they work with, things of that nature. Because you can't stand still. You have to constantly grow.
Yeah. And Alan, I think that's a brilliant point that I want to emphasize to people too. The best teachers are also the best students. The best teachers are the best students. That's what I'm learning from you, Alan. You're always learning too. You're always a student too. So I mean, you know, one of my channels talks about martial arts, right? And all the masters are always getting knocked out by actual fighters, because the masters are like, I'm a master. I don't need to fight. I don't need to do this. So they get rusty, or they never even mastered it, right? So it's like, if you call yourself a master or teacher or whatever, you're probably not a master. You're probably the worst student. So be a student, and you're the best teacher.
Well, you know what? I also feel like, you know, maybe it's a function of ego. I don't label myself. It's not for me to say that I'm a master. You know, that's really, other people will make a determination based upon what they learn from me and how they're able to utilize what I communicate to them. You know, I know that I'm good at what I do. I know that I can communicate in that sense. You know, I don't have a false ego about that, but I don't let my ego get in the way of, oh, I'm so good. I'm such a master that I have nothing left to learn, because learning is forever. You're always going to learn something. You know, when I work with my students, even as I teach them and I give corrective criticism, I see them do things that sparks ideas. And so for me, they're teaching me also. I'm not just teaching them. It's a two-way street. Sometimes they'll ask me questions, and that will stimulate something. And it'll be, oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Let me see how I can approach that. Things of that nature. So as you say, somebody who studies the martial arts, and I think you make a great point, you know, if you don't keep doing it, you get rusty. You know, the guy that I studied with very briefly was this brilliant master, Master Little John Davis. Oh, I mean, he's a true master. But, you know, Master Little John lived it every day. It wasn't like you said, you know, it's not just something you do once in a while. Well, you know, as a martial artist, I can liken it, let's say, to music. Okay, the great musicians, I play the drums, okay? The great musicians, the greatest of them, Steve Smith, Virgil Donati, Vinnie Colaiuta, these guys, they live it. They live it. They're always doing it. And they're never like, okay, I'm done, I'm finished. I've learned everything there is to know about drumming. No, they're always trying to get to the next level, whatever that is.
And Alan, something you said earlier that I also want to really emphasize, because this channel really wants to learn about business, is the power of referrals. I think that's something, it's something you learn in sales. Anyone that's done sales knows the power of referrals. Referrals are always better than cold calling or whatever, right? You got these students who already like working with you, and you know you have a chemistry with them. Well, it's better to get their referrals, because they'll probably find you people that'll work better with you, and you'll work better with them, etc. So this can be applicable to any industry, the power of referrals.
Absolutely. And you know what I find about that that's also interesting? Like when I take on a new student, it's not, I don't do like, okay, he wants to study with me or she wants to study with me. Okay, come on in. I always say to them, let's talk on the phone. Very informal, okay? Do you want my resume? No. I don't need your resume. I teach people of all levels. You can be a ranked beginner, or as I've taught professionals. But what I'm interested with them is their attitude and their thirst for knowledge. And you get a feel for that on the phone. You know, like when they're talking to you and they're asking you questions about craft, right? As opposed to, hey, how do I get to Hollywood? Like I had a guy, I got to tell you this, I had a guy call me many, many years ago, strong Brooklyn accent. And I answered the phone. Being from Brooklyn, I can recognize that. I answered the phone and goes, hey, how you doing? I said, good, how are you doing? he says, hey, listen, you give acting lessons? And I said, yes, I do. And I said, you're interested in training? And he goes, yeah. Listen, how do I get to Hollywood?
Mm.
And I said, do you want literal directions? Or you're talking about building a career? So he goes, yeah. He says, all right, let me get back to you. And he hangs up the phone. So I guess my question confused him no end, right?
Yeah.
But I have found with regard to referrals that when I work with really good people, I mean good, fine, honest, decent people that I work with, likable people, the people they refer to me are like them.
Yeah.
You know, it's the old, call it whatever you want, water seeks its own level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the Beatles said, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
Yeah.
You know, when you have nice people and they're referring other people to you, 9 chances out of 10, you're going to enjoy the people that were sent to you. But as you say, word of mouth, very, very, very important.
Yeah. It's funny. I have many stories kind of like what you said too. People will be like, oh, how do I go viral on YouTube? Or, you know, how do I make a career on YouTube? And I always have to really talk to them a little bit and ask them, you kind of through talking to them feel like if they're serious or not, right? And you start asking them details, and a lot of times that's how you filter. It's like, do I spend some time teaching you? Well, I'm going to ask you some questions. They might seem like very generic, kind of mundane questions, but it's a good way to gauge whether you're just trying to seek, oh my God, I made a 1 million view video, which by the way is very hard. Like, is that all you want to do? Or is like, do you actually want to be a filmmaker? Do you actually want to make content, right? So it's very similar parallel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, many of the bios I've read about, say, directors or writers like John Huston, for example. Now, you know, a lot of times people talk about talent, right? Talent. Well, I have nothing against talent. I mean, Brando had all the talent in the world, but people forget about craft.
Yeah.
And they forget about skill. You know, one of my favorite quotes is by Michael Caine. And Michael Caine said, whether or not I have talent is beside the point. I'm a professional. I know how to work. And the professionals, everyone that I've read about is always emphasizing craft and skill. Mm-hmm. One and the same. You know, Noah Emmerich, who's a wonderful character actor. He was in The Americans. If you haven't seen it, it's a terrific show to watch. Noah Emmerich also had a great quote. He said, work at your craft and your career will show up. Mm. And I love that quote because, look, no teacher on earth can guarantee a student success. And anybody that does that is being dishonest.
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody said to me, I guarantee I can make you a great actor, I'd be looking for the exit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can become a great actor. I have to work at my craft to see what results I can possibly get.
Yeah.
So I think it really is important, as what you're saying is, are you dedicated to the craft? Are you committed to excellence?
Yeah.
Do you want to get better at what you do?
Yeah.
And how are you going to do that logically?
Yeah.
If you don't work at it? You know, I've never seen you perform martial arts, but based upon your dedication, I could say, you know, I'm going to take an educated guess that Jerry's good at what he does. I'm going to take that guess. But if you had said to me, unless you're some kind of prodigy or something, yeah, you know, I work out at the gym in every few months, you know, and I'm a black belt. You know, I'd be going, well, who gave you the black belt? Who sold you that black belt? I mean, can you be a black belt if you go to the gym once every 4 months? Yeah. So I think that you learn from all these great people that they build careers. You know, John Ford starts out in silent movies. His brother got him in.
Yeah.
And then he does stunt work. And then he rides horses. And then he gets a couple of roles in films. And then little by little, he gets a shot at directing.
Yeah.
And he built a career. He didn't go out there and go, okay, here's the great John Ford, make a movie.
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, Alan, let's talk about, so as the ball started getting rolling, you started getting more students. When did you decide, okay, I'm going to rent out a location in New York City and I'm going to have this place where people can come to take classes? What was that decision like?
Well, obviously, you know, I did need a studio, right? And there were people that were willing to come to my apartment for private sessions. But here in the metropolitan area, most people want to be in Manhattan, right? I still have students that will come to me, not now again during quarantine, you know, it's different. But I have many students that have come to the apartment, but I needed a studio. So I started looking into studios in Manhattan, and I was teaching at this place or that place. And, you know, I didn't have a steady time. I had times that I taught, but the studios didn't always accommodate my times, right? So I was fluctuating from one place to another. I must have been at 6, 7, 8, 9 of them at one time. You know, like you want in a session, you go, hey, Alan, can you work with me Wednesday at 5? And I go, Jerry, let me get right back to you. And I'm on the phone to the studios. So in that sense, it was a hassle, but I was willing to do it. It's part of building my business. You know, I said, hey, this is what you do. I wasn't going to bitch and moan about it, right? Then eventually, one day I got lucky. And I see this thing in the paper of studio space down in the Village at a place called the Players Theater. Am I allowed to mention names? Is that okay?
Oh, totally, yeah. I will put all the links in the description, man. So, yeah, mention as many as you can. I'll put the links. I'll promote them.
Great. So, you know, I go down to the Players Theater. It's got new ownership now, but that's neither here nor there. And the guy tells me his rates, this guy Thomas, who was managing. And I said, what times do you have available? And apparently it wasn't that well known yet. He goes, whatever time you want. I said, oh, wow. I said, well, can I book specific times for my classes? He said, sure. And I said, can you lock me in like on a weekly or monthly basis? He said, absolutely. So I started, whether I had a Tuesday or Wednesday or a Saturday class, I began booking the times. And I got to tell you, I was so fortunate, you know, because I said, wow, now I have a place that I can call, in a sense, my home, my studio home. This is where my classes are. So, again, that's where I teach all year long. And I have my time carved out Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, whatever, and any other times that I need. But with the lockdown right now, nobody's going into the city. So hopefully, you know, I'll be able to open again soon, and I can resume my regular classes. For now, it's all online.
It's all online, exactly. So I think a question that many people ask, watching, would kind of ask at this point of the conversation is, there's this, if you want to act, you have to go to LA or you have to go to New York. What do you think about that question? That's like the first question many aspiring actors, directors, filmmakers, etc. stumble on. Do people who want to act have to go to New York or have to go to LA? Or is it like LA's better than New York, New York's better than LA? What do you think about that question?
You know, I think these also, I mean, you can be advised by people that have experience. You know, I've spoken with agents that will advise people to come out to LA because so much is filmed out there, right? Whereas New York is known for its theater. Although there's a lot of shooting done in New York now, much more than before. Now, I can tell you that I'm not opposed to somebody with knowledge advising people, but when it comes to what do I have to do, I think New York is a really, really good place to study acting. I think there's a lot of different choices you can make. There's a lot of opportunities here. I think it's, to some extent, easier to get around than LA. We do have mass transit, so it makes getting in and out of the city very, very easy. And I think it's, in my opinion, it's a good idea to try to establish yourself in New York first and build up some relationships, casting directors, agents, other actors, etc., so that when you're ready to make the move, like one of my students moved out to LA, I think it was last year, he was ready to make the move, and he's doing very well, right? But he studied his craft, he got into his films, he did his plays, etc., and then the time came for him to say where he went, I want to make the plunge. Now, having said that, if a person says to me, well, I'm going out to LA and I'm going to establish myself out there, who am I to say, don't do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I even say that?
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do? Is that your next move? By all means, do it. The one thing I've heard about, I have to say this secondhand, because I haven't experienced firsthand, so this is hearsay, but there are any number of people that have told me that it was very difficult for them when they first went out to LA because they didn't have a job, they didn't have an agent, they didn't have an apartment, and they didn't have a car.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them had to come back.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it was really difficult to navigate that terrain. I'm not saying impossible. I'm not saying don't do it. My advice, being a New Yorker and being here and knowing what New York has to offer, I say, what's wrong with starting in a place where there's a lot of off Broadway?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of indie films being done here. There's off-Broadway.
Yeah.
Broadway I'm going to leave aside for now because it takes a little bit of time to get to Broadway, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that there's a great deal of opportunity here. So I see no reason why establishing yourself in New York first wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm pretty averse to people telling other people what they have to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You must do this and you must do that. I think it's different for different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean Brando came from Nebraska.
Yeah, yeah.
He was from Nebraska. He was 19 when he got here.
Yeah.
He worked in theater. He was at the New School. He took workshops with a guy by the name of Erwin Piscator and then eventually found Stella Adler. She became his teacher, his regular teacher. So it was 1943 until 47 till he landed a role in Streetcar.
Yeah.
So what's right and what's wrong?
Yeah, exactly. I love what you said, Alan, because, you know, I even look at my career. Again, I'm not a professional actor or anything, but I started my journey in Philly, right? When I met you, Alan, I was coming up to New York to visit my friend, and I was like, oh, I gotta take this course that Alan was offering. So, like, I got my start in Philly, and because I built a little YouTube channel then, the YouTube channel eventually landed me a job in LA, and then I built that, right? So, like, everyone's journey is different. So, exactly. You know, there might be a tried and true path, but especially now in this day and age, it's getting less and less concrete. And like I think what we've been talking about in this entire conversation, the key is you better be a go-getter. You better keep learning and keep learning from good people. And I think if you keep staying true to yourself and keep learning, keep building, that's the most important. It's not what city you start with or whatever, but the key is just if you really love the craft, you just keep going with it.
Absolutely. I mean, and you just described your own experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you said, I was from Philly. I came up to New York to take a class with Alan or whoever. And then I started my YouTube channel and I built that and then I came out to LA. So who's somebody to say to you then, Jerry, look, oh, Jerry, you did it the wrong way. That's not the way to do it, Jerry. You don't do it that way. What are you talking about? Yeah. We're all individuals, you know?
Yeah.
And I think we do have to develop knowledge, of course. We have to learn. And then we also have to develop good instincts. You know, what feels right to you? I'm not saying it is right, but what's right for you may not be, or let's put it in another term as opposed to right and wrong, because I really don't like those terms too much. What's effective for you may not be effective for me.
Yeah.
Or what's effective for you, you can turn around and say, hey, Alan, let me just share something with you about my experience and then take it and do with what you want. Yeah. And I might say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a leaf out of Jerry's book because I'll tell you, he's been there and done that and he knows the ropes. And I'd be foolish not to take advantage of that knowledge. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
but,
exactly.
As you say, I think you hit the nail on the head again with the work ethic, right? Samuel Goldwyn of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Sam Goldwyn, he once said, somebody asked him about success. He said, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yep.
And I love that quote too, right?
Yeah.
So we have to keep working. We have to keep plugging away. And don't worry about the outcome. That can get in your way also.
Exactly.
Just keep plugging, right?
Yeah.
Right now, all of us, by the way, we're all being tested. We're all being challenged.
Yeah.
At this time in our lives, and this ain't easy for anyone, but at this time in our lives, we're being tested. Can we hang in? Can we hold it together? Can we persevere? No guarantees, but we got to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And Alan, I think we're in an interesting time, especially digital media, YouTube and all that, TikTok, all that. It's created a new generation of people who probably don't have as much formal training, but they're able to kind of garner a following, right? Do you find kind of acting has changed because of digital media, or maybe it's not changed, but it's become more niche or whatever? What is your opinion on that?
With regard to the technology as you are discussing it, I have to admit that this is not my forte. I am not well versed. In fact, a lot of what I know about technology, either I learned from my wife, who shows me how to do things, or I learned from people in your generation that will say, oh, Alan, have you tried this or have you tried that? These, as you know, these reality TV shows or TikTok or whatever, I think it's about instant celebrity. People want to be seen. They're marketing whatever parts of themselves that they're marketing, right? Because I don't know how they could perceive themselves as actors, quite frankly, because I'm a crafts person, and that's not acting. Reality television isn't acting. But I think acting at its core is still what it is. Whether you're going to the theater or you're going to see a movie and you're going to see a good story, and don't you need good writing to have a good film? And don't you have to have competent actors to tell the story and an experienced director? So, maybe the technology has changed, right? Like shooting on digital as opposed to shooting film. Okay? I mean, it used to be film, and listen, things change, right? I mean, the Wright brothers had a plane that, if it got 120 feet in the air, it was a major ordeal, right? Okay, things change. So, I remember doing a film one time where the camera person was loading film inside of a bag, right, so that the film didn't get exposed. Okay, that element of it has changed for sure. But you still need the pieces to be put in place. So in what ways then has acting changed? I think Marlon Brando's still influencing actors today.
Yeah.
His performances. So again, technology-wise, I'm not the guy to come to. But as far as the craft of acting is concerned, or theater is concerned, acting is acting. It's either believable and truthful and dynamic. Who was the director I read recently? I can't remember which one it was. He said, look, when I go to the theater, he spoke specifically of theater, but you can apply this to film also.
Yeah.
And when I go to the theater, I want those actors, and in a sense he's saying the writer, but I want to include everybody. I want them to hold up a mirror to me. I want that performance to show me something of myself. Whether or not it's flattering or not, theater at its best is holding up a mirror and saying, take a look, what do you see? What have you learned? Now, there's nothing wrong with going to theater for pure entertainment. I went to see whatever. Some people love musicals. I was entertained like crazy. Then you have things like Hamilton. Isn't Hamilton art? So I think that ultimately the craft is the craft. I don't see where that's changed. You either have skills and a strong technique, or you don't, or you have to work on it.
I think it's very interesting hearing from you. And one of the reasons I'm asking this question also is because one of my friends is an actor, and he's I was talking to him the other day, and he was saying he thinks we're in an era where acting coaches, actors will rely less on methods and maybe rely on other things. So he thinks this is his prediction. He thinks people will do less Stanislavski and Meisner, et cetera, and just I don't know how they're gonna learn how to act more naturally and convincingly. But he thinks the era of method acting, all of that's slightly outdated. So that's why I've been having this question for a while. That's why I wanted to ask an expert about this.
I don't think it's outdated. I mean, I think people are always going to choose the approach, the method that resonates for them. Again, which of the techniques works best for you. So I would have to disagree with him on that level. I mean, Meisner, for example, he and Stella Adler had very similar approaches as far as they both said that acting is doing. Acting is doing. Now, Meisner stressed the reality of doing. And his technique is based on listening and working off the other person. Learning how to leave yourself alone, stay open, and react from your truthful point of view.
Yeah.
Now, how is that not necessary for any actor?
Yeah.
How can you be in a performance and tell me that listening doesn't matter, working off the other person doesn't matter, I'll just make believe? Well, the definition of acting is living truthfully in the imaginary circumstances.
Yeah.
So in what way is that going to change? Now, I don't know your friend, so I don't want to cast any aspersions, but I think it's a little frivolous, if you will, to suggest, well, I don't need that because it's outdated. I would have to disagree with them strongly. I think strong technique, I can't imagine anybody that you could mention coming from, I don't care what the great acting school is or the great actors, I don't care what four corners of the earth they come from. They've all got to learn what it means to listen and work truthfully in the imaginary circumstances.
Yeah.
Generality, Stanislavski said, is the enemy of art. Is that outdated? Specifics, details. It's not outdated.
Yeah.
Every artist needs to be specific.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can speak from just my experience with learning a little bit about the Stanislavski method and then learning a little bit about Meisner, that I think, if anything, if I were to weigh in on this conversation, this debate, I would say these methods, there's a reason why they've been used by so many actors. It's because you can think of it as like the quickest, most efficient way to get there, to get to a true kind of actor. You could try other things, but you're just prolonging that process of becoming very, very genuine to yourself. And I think that's how I would weigh into it. I just think about, I've done some acting, and I always do exactly what I've learned, in my brief classes. I'm always listening. I'm always, okay, I'm not going to try to predict or anticipate or, do whatever. I'm always reacting, responding to whomever, right? So, but I can see actors, even LA actors. I don't know what kind of acting class they've been taking in LA, but like they're not responding back to me. And so I can't be genuine back to you if you're not listening. Like you have this like image of what you want to do, but that's not what the scene's about. The scene's not about you. The scene's about this, right? The scene's about this interaction. And so that's probably a pitfall that people who, let's say, don't go through some of this method training, this tried and true proven system, that's a pitfall they're going to fall into. And then they're going to wonder, why am I not getting callbacks? Why are people, why is this guy acting opposite of me, kind of getting frustrated with me?
Right. Look, ultimately you're serving the script, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, the writer, let's assume for the moment that it's good writing. Let's take good writing. You're getting Tennessee Williams or Mamet or Shepard or Moliere or whatever you're doing, Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You're being given brilliant words to say. But it's not about the words. the words matter in terms of the creation of the imaginary circumstance, of course. But what matters is your ability to bring those words to life.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, there's interpretation involved, but you do have to understand the characters in relation to the time and the place, the circumstances, etc.
Yeah.
So as you say, the rule of thumb for me is no listening, no reacting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll just give an example from life. Let's forget about acting. Suppose you and I are having a cup of coffee at the Washington Square Diner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to you and your mind starts to drift away.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm Jerry. Jerry? Yeah. Where'd you go? Oh, my mind was wandering. I just drifted off someplace. How are you going to react to me if you're not with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you going to react to me even now as we're having a fun conversation, we're talking craft, this and that, but how are we going to be stimulated by one another if we're really not listening to one another? Like, for example, I'm enjoying the questions and I'm enjoying the exchange and the energy that's passing back and forth on this screen.
Yeah.
You're not even in my presence. But if you're talking to me and I'm not listening to you, how do I react?
Yeah.
And I think that's basic.
Yeah.
So you can't be a good actor if you don't know how to listen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how are you going to fake that when you go up in front of a casting director that's looking for people that listen and that live moment to moment and impulse to impulse?
Yeah.
You know, De Niro said something once about auditioning. He said, listen, you are not going to get every role.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to your audition and you do something instinctive, okay, they'll remember that.
Yeah.
That will be remembered because that's your instinct is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what's the moral of that story? Well, develop your instincts.
Yeah.
So again, as you were putting before selling a product, I'm not a salesman, but you know, I'm saying if you want to learn to work instinctively, I can't think of a better technique than Meisner. If you find one, by all means, go to it. But I can't think of one.
And I will put another angle to this, which is that, you know, there's a lot of, we're talking about learning to be genuine, learning to listen and stuff like that. There's a lot of self-help gurus, a lot of these like dating coaches who teach some of the same thing, right? But I can 100% tell you, I've read some of that, but you know what helped me more was that one acting class. Was Alan's Meisner class helped me learn way more about listening than if I were to read a book on like how to date better, you know, how to listen. There's a reason why methods are proven, right? A lot of the new agey stuff, like maybe they even draw from some of these proven stuff, but they're not the proven stuff that's gone on for hundreds of years. So do the stuff that like has been proven to work.
You know, again, I'm not going to guarantee anybody. You know, I won't say to you, oh, you have to study with me. You have to study Meisner because if you don't study with me, you won't learn how to act. That's insanity. But I'll say this. Oftentimes, I'll ask my students, you know, they've been working with me for a while doing the technique. And I said, answer me honestly, okay? Just give me an honest answer. Do you find that you're listening better in your everyday lives? And invariably, they'll tell me, yes. They say, you know, it's really made an impact even on my friendships or my relationships because I've been told that I seem more attentive and more connected. Well, I do think that if you practice it and you really get in the habit of listening, well, guess what? You become a better listener.
Yeah. And in general, people who usually are better listeners become better people too, right? So it's like it's a good chain of things that happen to you.
We hope.
Yeah, we hope. Sometimes they become better listeners. That gives them more plotting potential too. But
right. We never know. It varies from person to person. But a lot of great directors. I think Shirley Jones told a story one time about working with Richard Brooks in the movie Elmer Gantry. And I don't recall exactly what was happening while they were shooting the scene. But apparently there was a slight break, and Richard Brooks went over to Shirley MacLaine, and she's an experienced, performer. And he just looked at me and said, Shirley, listen. It's always going to come back to that. And the good directors can tell when you're not listening, especially if you've done some acting. And you'll know, to me, the worst thing you can do as an actor is rehearse how you're going to say a line.
Yes.
To me, that's one of, because that's a predetermined response to something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And so when you're a good actor, you've done your homework, learned your lines, you throw it away. Now, I'm not worried about my lines. I need to be there for you, and you need to be there for me.
Yeah.
What you were saying before. I need to feel connected to you. Do something to me, I will react, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Suzanne Shepard told me for years, she said, good actors are generous actors.
Yes.
We give to one another, and that's how. Have you ever heard a wonderful actor give an acceptance speech, and he starts thanking the other actors for helping him with his performance? That's not just a frivolous comment. You can't give a great performance, first of all, without a great script.
Yeah.
And other wonderful actors around you that stimulate you, right? You need that.
Yeah.
It's important to work with people you can learn from.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of people that are better than you are. Learn from them.
Exactly. And when I came to LA in 2015, I took an improv class, and improv really helped me because, again, I've never done improv. A lot of the people in my improv class have done improv. A lot of them were trying to be actors. One of them was a working actor, right? So exactly like Alan says, I was learning from them, and my coach Jamie was awesome. I was learning from them, and it only makes you better if you work with people who, quote unquote, are better than you.
Listen, my drumming teacher is better than me.
Yeah,
it's not an ego thing.
Yeah.
I came to him because he was recommended by a bass player friend, and I said it was like five and a half years ago, and I called him up, Patrick Pfeiffer. I'm plugging him. Yeah. He's got 2 books out. Bass for Dummies, and he's got Bass for Dummies too. Great guy. Mm-hmm. I called him up and I said, hey, Patrick, I want to get back into my drumming. Mm-hmm. And before I finished the sentence, he said, I got the perfect guy for you, Alan. No, I trusted him. Like you said, word of mouth, right? Mm-hmm. It goes back to our original. I said, oh, Patrick's referring him. And I found this great teacher, Dave Mead. And I had played drums before, but I told Dave, I said, Dave, take me back to square one. I want to start from scratch. Mm-hmm. I want to learn how you play and what your technique is and how you hold the sticks and so on and so forth. I went back to square one. Wow. But it wasn't about ego. Yeah. Oh, gee, he's better than me. Oh, he's better than me. Why is he showing off? He's better than me. No, he was teaching me. You can't be afraid of corrective criticism.
Yeah.
You can't learn if you're afraid of corrective criticism.
Yeah. And another thing I definitely want to mention is I think about the growth in my mind with like regards to empathy, right? Being able to see other people's views. Besides faith, which has really helped me, the other thing was acting classes. I think about when I became a better listener. I think it really was after that first acting class I took in college, a little bit of Stanislavski method, that I started noticing the environment more, right? That's one step in learning how to listen better. I really started noticing the environment, where things were placed, how that influences people. And then I will give credit to Alan. Your class where we were doing some of those exercises, it's like, notice this inflection, notice these things, right? It's not, if someone says this and you're supposed to repeat it back to them, but you're thinking your own way, whoa, just even one word, if you're repeating one word, it's like, whoa, I'm not doing it because I'm not mirroring it. I'm actually thinking, still using my own biases. So that helped you really, you start paying attention to like what they're saying. And then the improv class I took when I came out to LA, that really pounded in your head. Okay, one, you cannot have a way of guiding the scene because then it falls apart. But also, two, it's like you have to be prepared for anything. Yep. You literally have to be prepared. So like that really helps you with empathy, man, because people aren't machines. They don't work the way you want them to, right? So it's like I really give a lot of credit, besides faith, to acting. the acting classes I've taken that really help make me a better person. So sounds like I'm like trying to tell everyone to be an actor, which everyone should take acting classes. That's not the point. The point is these classes, there's a reason why they work. And don't be like, oh, they cost $200 or $300 or whatever. Oh, I don't want to do it. Try it once, man. Usually they'll be really helpful.
Well, again, you use the word empathy. I mean, let's apply it specifically to acting.
Mm-hmm.
I think empathy in life is a wonderful thing if you're able to not only relate to the other person, but you're able to understand their experience. How they experience something, almost in a sense of seeing the world through their eyes for a minute, right? What did the old Indian expression? Walk a mile in my shoes before you judge me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, if people really took that approach in life, we'd all be a lot better off. Instead of prejudging, judging, and putting people into boxes and defining them and labeling. Oh, well, wait a minute. I've never done that. Let me experience from this person's point of view. Maybe I'll have a completely different impression of who they are and what they do. And but if we then apply it to acting, how can you be an effective actor if you're unable to explore this other person's world and inhabit that world? Because you're going to be expressing their point of view, not mine. Like, for example, just simple stuff. You go out to, we go out to dinner together, and you have one way of reacting to a food that you like. Do I react exactly the same way? No. But if I'm playing you, I'm going to observe you. I'm going to digest you. I'm going to ingest you until I can do your mannerisms as you do them. Then I'm inhabiting your world. And I'm not saying every role is about me. It's a mistake for an actor to say, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, I wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do what? Well, I would never hit my wife. Well, neither would I. But Stanley Kowalsky does. He knocks his wife out cold. He does that. So we have to be able to find ways to inhabit the world of the character, and, as Kazan said, so important to find that character inside of ourselves, not outside. He said it wasn't abstract. But I love the word that you used when you said empathy, because that carries a lot of weight, a lot.
Exactly. And for viewers who don't know who Stanley Kowalsky is, A Streetcar Named Desire, man, an essential watch. And in fact, I would recommend viewers, if you watch the Marlon Brando version, also read the script. It's a short script, man. Read the script. Also, there's two other interpretations of A Streetcar Named Desire that are very worth watching too. So watch the other versions. There's one version with Anne Margaret as the character that Vivian Lee played. That was a very cool version too. So I would, and there's one with Jessica Lange too, I believe. So yes. I would recommend viewers watch all three versions, read some of the script, if not all the script, just see how the different actors will interpret it differently, but also what Alan's talking about. How do you get yourself to see, genuinely feel what maybe Stanley Kowalsky felt? Why would someone like him do what he did, etc.? So,
yeah, I think to play a character effectively, you have to begin to explore how that character deals with life.
Yeah.
When Tennessee Williams wrote that, I thought it was very interesting when he told Elia Kazan, the director, who directed originally on Broadway and then the film version, but Broadway was 1947, the film was 51, and Tennessee Williams, genius, he said to Kazan, he said, look, I didn't write good and bad people. He said, Stanley can be good at times or bad at times. So can Stella and so can Blanche. Now, for people that haven't seen Streetcar, I'm not going to give away the ending. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't want to talk about the ending. But ultimately, Stanley could be very reckless and very ruthless. But once again, these are things we have to find inside of ourselves. You don't want to play a recycled version of yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not interesting. And quite frankly, people aren't going to want to see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe there are people out there for a time they can get over on their looks. Maybe. I would say by and large, I wouldn't say a whole lot of them. Most of them are what we call flashes in the pan.
Mm-hmm.
They may have a short shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
But for people that are serious, that really love and are passionate about the craft, and they love the idea about what a joy to play different characters too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was Michael Caine that said, acting is the most fun you can have without committing a crime.
Exactly.
You know, so I think you really get to express a lot of what's inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
From a variety of different person's point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for viewers that have ever watched a TV show or watched a Broadway show or watched a movie, and you can just sense when an actor's acting versus when an actor isn't acting, right? You can be like, oh, that actor is convincing. I think if you haven't learned anything from this talk, watch it again. You'll probably learn why you get that feeling when an actor is quote unquote acting versus when an actor like actually it feels like the character. A lot of what that central thing that a lot of people have a sixth sense of, that is explaining a lot of what Alan and I are talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a thing we call the willful suspension of disbelief. I don't know if you've heard the expression before, but it pertains to when you go to watch something, right? If those people are believable, right, you'll take the ride.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll go on the roller coaster ride with them if they're believable.
Yeah.
But if they begin to do things that you question, you take them out of it.
Yeah.
They're no longer with you. They're gone.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get them back once you lose them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so again, we're talking about living truthfully in the imaginary circumstances. And how do I get there? And again, whether people choose to study Meisner or they want to study Strasberg or they want to do strict Stanislavski or any of the other people out there, once again, or Stella Adler, that's a personal choice.
Yeah.
But I still recommend studying. Great athletes, don't they train?
Yeah.
I mean, I've read about Ted Williams. You know, for him, hitting was a science. It's like a science for this guy.
Yeah.
With angles and where your shoulder is and your feet and your shoulder and leaning. It's just a whole science. You know, these people, they work. They work, whatever it is, they work at their craft, don't they? Just the same way you do.
Yeah, exactly. And, talking about the craft of being an acting coach, et cetera, Alan, tell me about, I understand 2012 is hard on everyone. What is the plan? Once this is all over, what was your plan, I guess, before all this lockdown? What is your plan in the future with your career as an acting coach?
Well, when I started out as an actor, obviously, I wanted to establish a career. And I wanted to do different things. I didn't want to just do one thing. So I would have liked to have done more theater, more film. I'd like to experience everything, because as we're talking about, the more experiences we have, the more we can draw from, right? Mm-hmm. We want a deep well that we can draw from. And to this day with my school, I'm always looking to expand the school, to take on more students, and to get it to a point perhaps where I can have other people working for me that say teach movement, teach voice, teach speech, articulation, all these things that are, I don't have a school like that right now, but when Brando, using him as a reference again, at one point, he wanted to study dance. He wanted to study music. He wanted to be well-rounded. He wanted to be cultured. I think all of those things help all of us, and I haven't given up on that. As I said, we've hit a little bump in the road here, right? But I would love to expand my school, take on more students, and provide them with the tools that could, at the very least, help them to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, this was acting coach Alan Gordon. And Alan, I have this idea that it just emerged. I'm kind of coffee crashing right now. But as I'm coffee crashing, I had this idea, which is I have a channel that talks about movies, but I don't do anything on that channel, because I have other channels that make me money. So I'm focused on those channels. But, I think it would be really great, Alan, if you're interested in the future, maybe once every 6 months or so, we talk about a movie that really we watched, or maybe a movie in the past or something that had good acting or bad acting. We can spend an hour kind of analyzing why it was believable or not believable, or even maybe during Oscar season next year, we can talk about the best picture winner and kind of analyze the acting. I don't know if that's something you're interested in, but that's something I would be interested to do with you.
Absolutely, positively. I think it would be a good idea if people are up for it. I don't know how you would want to arrange it. I'll leave that to you. But, I went to a Q&A once at the Brooklyn Museum. They were doing a retrospective on some of the people that came out of the Actors Studio. Mm-hmm. And although Brando didn't, I'm just saying that for the record, because he always wanted that known that he wasn't affiliated with the studio. He studied with Stella Adler, for whatever that's worth. Mm-hmm. But I remember we all came into the theater. They played Streetcar, and afterwards they did a Q&A, right? So I thought it might be a good idea too. I mean, you tell me how you want to do this, where maybe we assign a film for people to watch. Yeah. And tell people, hey, you know what? This week or this month, I should say, we're going to talk about Streetcar. So go watch it, write down your questions, and let's talk about it. And let's see what people's reactions are, and your reaction, my reaction to the film, and what makes for good viewing. Yeah. And once again, people aren't compelled to like what we like. Yeah, yeah. But I'm open to if somebody throws a film out there and says, I have questions about this, that, or the other. Sure, let's do it. And let's do it in an objective, non-judgmental way. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So for viewers, we'll definitely have Alan back. Maybe not on this channel, but probably on this channel too. But I think this analyzing acting, analyzing movie stuff is something I definitely want to do with Alan. So stay tuned for that, man. And viewers, if you want to ask Alan questions, you can leave them in the comment section or whatever. We will address the questions. And of course, if you want to follow Alan, we talked to Alan, mentioned a lot of great people. I will put all those links in the description, etc. But if you want to follow Alan, it's very simple. Alan Gordon Studio. Alan spelled A-L-A-N, the generic way. Gordon spelled like Flash Gordon. So AlanGordonStudio.com. And I will, of course, put a little link and everything down there. So if you want to take classes virtually, or if once this craziness is over, if you want to take classes in person in New York with Alan, AlanGordonStudio.com. Jerry, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. It's been too long in between drinks, as they say.
Exactly.
But, I love your energy, and I love talking to you, and I love talking about all manner of things. And I thank you once again for the opportunity of letting me come on. It's been great.
Definitely. And same goes to you, man, Alan. It's always a pleasure talking acting, talking life with you. And next time I come to New York, man, totally, we're going to do something in person too.
Okay. Dinner is on me.
Well, thank you.